What's up guys, my name's Ash and welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video guys, I've got some custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-2-3-1 formation, but just before we get started guys, as always, I'd very much appreciate it if you could drop us a thumbs up. It's time for Shapeshifters, so if you guys need any coins, make sure you check out MMOXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're fast, cheap and reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a very nice 5% discount. Alright then guys, so starting off with the custom tactics. For the defensive style, as always, I like to have this on balance. This is because I find it to be the most consistent in defense and the most varied. So when you want to press, you're able to press, and then when you want to drop off, be a little bit more passive, you're also able to do that. The other settings are a little bit restrictive and force you to play a certain way all the time, which is why I do prefer balanced, as I feel like you have better control. Moving on to the width guys, I like to have this on 35. This is so we can primarily defend in a nice narrow and compact shape, which means we're going to be able to block all those attacks through the middle, and our opponent's not just going to be able to run right through us. It's still important to maintain a bit of width though. You don't want to lower this too much, as it's still important to cover the wider areas in case an opponent tries an attack down the wing. So you want to be narrow but not too narrow. Moving on to the depth guys, I've got this on 57. Not really a specific number you got to use, but the reason I've gone for 57 is because it's a really nice balanced defensive line in my opinion. It's not too deep to the point where we're always getting pinned back and we're under loads of pressure, and on the flip side it's not crazy high to the point where one through ball will absolutely destroy us. Honestly guys, I'd say anywhere from 55 to 65 is a good depth. Obviously the higher it is, the higher your line is, but yeah, 57 seems to work for me. Moving on to build-up play guys, I've actually been really enjoying using fast build-up. This is because it allows me to play very quickly and create as many chances as I like. With fast build-up, I sometimes feel like you get better movement out of your players and they're a bit more responsive. That being said, balance is probably still the most meta option you can use, as it is the most consistent and you can be a lot more varied with it. For example, when you need to play a bit slower, you're also able to do that. With fast build-up, it's a little bit difficult to switch up your style of play, but fast build-up's been really nice for me. Moving on to chance creation guys, I suggest using direct passing. This is because it's by far the most meta option in the game. Basically, when you use direct passing, your attacking players will like bunch up against the defenders, so you can do the very overpowered 1v1 isolation plays. Players will also make those extra movements in the box, so you can get off that pass, the extra pass, and guarantee the goals. Direct passing is super important in my opinion, and is probably the most important tactic. Moving on to the attacking width guys, I've got this on 42. Again, not really a specific number, but the reason I've gone in this range is because I don't want my width to be crazy low, because even though this is a narrow formation, I don't want it to be too narrow to the point where it feels like all my players are on top of each other and like glued together, because that's not too good for building up the play. And on the flip side, I don't want to have like a crazy high width, otherwise it becomes more of a wide formation, which is not what the purpose of this formation is. So I kind of just gone for something in between with 42, and it works really nicely for me. Moving on to players in box guys, I've got this on 4. This is so we can get some players into the box to create those chances, but we don't overcommit the entire team to the point where we're always getting counter-attacked. As for corners and free kicks, I have these both on 1 because there is a set piece routine that I use which requires these to be on 1. There is a link to that in the top right hand corner of the screen. Now moving on to the players you want to use guys, in the striker position, what I like to do is get a nice well-rounded player here. This is because you have to compensate for the fact that there's one striker instead of 2 in this 4-2-3-1. So where you'd be able to get the balance between 2 strikers in a 2-striker formation, you kind of have to get it all in one player in the 4-2-3-1. So I suggest going for somebody that can like shoot on either foot, so somebody with like a 5-star weak foot is ideal, somebody that can pass and dribble, somebody that also has decent pace and physicality, basically a nice really well-rounded striker so that they're able to do a bit of everything. If you use a one-dimensional striker, somebody that can only finish chances, you know, somebody like Haaland or Kane, you're going to be very restricted because you can only really use those players to play through balls to and cross to, if you get what I'm saying. So if you use a nice well-rounded striker, you can be a lot more varied in your attack. Moving on to the cam guys, you can pretty much use whoever you want, but you're going to want to use somebody with at least some creative ability, because the central cam is like the main playmaker in the team, so you're not going to want to use somebody that can't pass, otherwise you're going to struggle to create chances. But just use somebody you're comfortable with. I would suggest somebody with like decent agility, decent passing and dribbling, and obviously somebody that can also finish off the chances, because there are a lot of times where this cam will be in the shooting positions. Moving on to the right cam and the left cam, it's important to use wingers here in my opinion. This is because these are like the main outlets in the team. Although they're cams, they play out more like wingers a lot of the time. So it is important to use players that are able to run at defenders, players that have like decent skill moves and good dribbling ability, even players that can pass and shoot, because again, like the central cam, they're often going to get into those areas where they will be ready to finish off those chances. So you can use whoever you want, but make sure you use fast enough and technical enough players in these winger style positions. Moving on to the CDMs, in the left CDM spot, I like to go for a more defensive minded player. This is somebody that's going to stay back, break up the play, and ensure we are as defensively sound as we possibly can be. I suggest using somebody with a medium high work rate if you can get it, as you get the maximum contribution in defense and they're not too bothered about going forward. Moving on to the right CDM, I like to use a more box to box style player. This is somebody that is actually going to attack and defend, so I would suggest somebody with a medium high work rate if you can get it. A high work rate, as you get the maximum contribution in both the attack and defense, but just ensure that this player has a nice well-rounded card so they're capable of doing a bit of everything. Moving on to the fullbacks, I go for a balance between my two fullbacks. I kind of like to go for a more technical left back, somebody that might be a bit better on the ball, and then in the right back position I've got somebody that is like a bit better defensively but not as technical. It's just something I like to do. You guys don't have to if you don't want to. And as for the centre backs, these just need to be the full meta players. These are obviously players that are very quick, nice and physical, players that have a medium high work rate, so you get the best animations and stuff like that, and the best positioning. But yeah, there's not too much to say about these defenders, and the goalkeeper, you can pretty much choose whoever you want. Moving on to the player instructions, guys. On the striker, I like to have him on stay central and mixed attack. We have him on stay central because we don't want this player drifting off into the wider areas. He is our striker, so it is important that he does maintain that primary central position. It is important that we don't have him drifting out to the wings, because we've already got players to cover those spaces, and we always need the striker to be in the correct position. We also have him on mixed attack, as I feel like you get a lot more out of him this way. If you put him on getting behind, he can be very restricted. He can always make the same one-dimensional runs and not do much else. But if you put him on mixed attack, he gets more involved in things like the build-up and seems to make a lot more dynamic movements. Moving on to the cam, guys, I have him on stay forward. The reason for this is it kind of just gives us another outlet when we win the ball back in defense. It gives us another option other than just a striker, and I think it works out quite well with this formation. You guys can put him on like basic defensive support though, it doesn't really matter. Moving on to the right cam and the left cam, we have them on comeback on defense. This is so we're as defensively sound as we possibly can be when we lose the ball, because sometimes these players can get a little bit lazy if you leave them on basic defensive support. So by putting them on comeback on defense, it ensures that they will fill in like that 4 midfield formation perfectly, and help us out when we are defending. So we're going to be good in attack and defense. Moving on to the left CDM, the more defensive minded player, we have him on stay back while attacking, cut passing lanes and cover center. We have him on stay back so he doesn't want to go forward because he is a defensive player. We have him on cut passing lanes, so he's always looking to intercept the passes, break up the play and be as annoying as possible to the opponents. And then most importantly, we have him on cover center, so he does defend those central areas. Moving on to the right CDM, the more box to box style player, we have him on the default settings and cover center. We have him on the default settings because he's got a bit of a free roll. He's a box to box player, so we don't want to restrict him all that much. The only important thing is that we have him on cover center, so he does defend those central areas. Now for both fullbacks, I also like to have them on stay back while attacking and overlap. We have them on stay back while attacking, so we're as defensively sound as possible and our opponents can't just like ping a ball down the wings. We also have them on overlap, so if we do send them on a run forward, they will make the overlapping runs to add extra width to the formation. If you're feeling quite aggressive, you can just put one of them on balanced attack and overlap and that will work just fine, but for now I just have them both on stay back and overlap. As for the centre backs and the keeper, these are on the default settings and I do not touch them. But yeah guys, they're my custom tactics and player instructions for the 4-2-3-1. If you have enjoyed or found it useful, please be sure to drop us a thumbs up, sub to the channel if you are new, and don't forget to turn on notifications. And with all that aside guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.